So you were talking a little bit about artists and how it's separate and the ability to be able to handle business thinking. Is that right?
Yes.
Can you talk about that just a little bit?
The artists I've encountered are a little bit more spontaneous, a little less organized than your typical business owner. And I think that is the creative mind. So it's a challenge for them a lot of times in scheduling. A lot of times artists are also beholden to many different jobs and time schedules that coordinating with daytime. A lot of musicians in particular have nighttime jobs. And so when it comes down to thinking ahead and organizing and preparing it all you need in business, I just don't think creative minds, I just don't think that that's how they work as much. I couldn't explain why. I have both. I'm luckily, but sometimes I facilitate my creative mind by smoking a bowl. Just saying, being real, you know? And I mean, I think that there's a lot of liberating ways that artists are hung up on operations and everything, and it frees them up to be creative, but it does not promote them in a sort of business world.
So, do you think? Well, this is really deep, right? Because it's really about the way that we think and approach the world around us. Mm-hmm. So, can you describe the business side more? And is there a way for you to talk about it so that artists can understand it?
There's a sort of chaos that is inherent in working with artists that in business is tackled by a schedule and a formula, and that turns artists away. You know, that so they don't even try. I think that they don't even want to approach that end of it. It's also the value system of how arts are valued in our society. They're not. You are the low on the totem pole, like business and capital gains above all. So if your investment isn't to get a return, it's literally for output. But in a society that doesn't value art as equal to money that helps us survive and helps us persist and to do these things we do, that's a big struggle for people. So then they don't even try. They work at their waiting jobs or their bartending jobs, and they don't really see their art as something of business. I don't think.
Right, because that's the obstacle, because people don't know, artists especially don't realize that they can monetize the things that they do, mm-hmm. and there's some kind of there are steps that takes, mm-hmm. and it just seems impossible because the feedback from the environment around them is consistently telling them,
you're not worth it.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's really that's frustrating, but doesn't stop us from doing it. That's clear. It's just I find, though, that there's a lot of people that claim they're artists that aren't. And that is muddying up the entire system. And now that there's so much access to promoting yourself and self-promotion and marketing, and that there's a lot of mediocrity. Where are the patrons of the arts anymore? That some extremely talented person that cannot hardly feed themselves because they are just that out there. They exist all over the place. And they might be frustrating to work with. I've dealt with a lot of them. I love them to death, though. I love them to death, and I can work with them, and I give them the opportunity because what they're producing is so much above what maybe the not so much artist who is just placing themselves in this system and naming themselves that and classing themselves as this. But they're, they've got, their Microsoft job and their $10,000 a month check, and that they can, and they can say, oh, I'm an artist or I'm a musician and I'm fabulous, and they can pay all the people around them and stuff. And it's just like, but then you see the one artist that is just like truly talented that does struggle partly because of their talent. And that's not valued in this world. And so it's like, it's unfortunate.
So I've been thinking a lot about the left and right brain hemispheres and how that dictates creative thought versus logistical action and things like that. And I believe that it's something that can definitely be cultivated, but it's understanding the value of that and why it's necessary in order to make a living as an artist, even though time-wise, everybody just wants to be in front of their canvas or whatever their practice is. But it is important that we start defending ourselves because we're giving our time away when we go to those jobs.
Yes, and I really enjoy, I know the movement on internships has really flipped, and internships are starting to be paid internships. I've done a ton of free internships, and people call me here at this studio all the time, and I'm sorry, I just say, I'm sorry, I don't do that. I don't feel, and the only people I've had work here, I pay a good wage for the work they do. Otherwise, I feel like it's just taking advantage of the system still. It's like those, and there's a lot of things like in film and music and all over the place, in radio, that totally take advantage, in publications and magazines and stuff, that totally take advantage of these, young minds and young, eager people. And it's just, and oftentimes those people are artistic people too. And they're willing. So they weren't told, when they're going to studying, whatever they're studying, if they do that they're worth anything, really, As far as the oversaturation thing, I just don't know how to get over that. I don't know how to get over that. I think, in general, it devalues art as a whole.
Don't you think in a way, though, it's because so the internet has been really incredible, but it's sort of in a sophomoric stage, and that there are going to be ways for us to basically, the model's changing, and I think we're in this really adolescent stage that we just don't know how to handle right now or figure out what those filters are, but they will be developed.
I get in arguments with people about Kickstarter. I do not think it's the best thing on the planet. I'm sure it's promoted and facilitated some really awesome stuff, and I know I've seen it. But I guess just like anything, it's going to be abused.
Yeah, I think it depends on the campaigner. If I just look at
it like that, it's not all the evils that other things are, but it's got a ways to go.
Pharrell actually invested in Kickstarter to start that up.
Oh, yeah?
Which I think is really interesting because he's a entrepreneur. But yeah, I think it really depends on the incentives and coming through that you really offer people. Are you actually contributing to those people? And people don't understand that about business. It's something I've been learning is,
Art's not about incentives. Art is about the art.
Right.
That's what makes me sick.
Right.
It's like, it should be about the end product being above other people's and people needing it and wanting it and desiring it. And with it, and instead of the incentives of what comes with it. This goes on, like, for instance, festivals. Everything, and capitalism is so rampant in arts, and it's really destroying the value of art, which is funny, in my opinion. And music especially. There's all these entrepreneurs and business people out in the music industry that make all the money, and even people that organize festivals, in their heart, they're doing the right thing. They're doing a good community thing. There are festivals that have a good community basis, but over the last 15 years, the number of festivals that have come into play completely dictate how musicians get to tour, and how, because there's blackout dates on either side of any festival you go to. You're stuck at a really high ticket price. You have to, you see these bands in the daytime, and it's like, no. I don't want to see, Marilyn Manson out in the field. That's the last thing I want to see. But I just feel like it's all these people saying, what else can we do? What else can we do to make money off of this? And it's
unchecked development.
Yeah,
Yeah.
It is unchecked
Yeah.
development. And
That's an ethics problem.
It is. And I have conflict with people a lot, but I don't know. I personally really prefer intimate experience with art. And I love to be caught off guard. I don't need to know all about it up front. I don't want to be, reeled in with fancy marketing. Seattle is so techy and so full of like fancy. It's just I really like underground stuff, and I hope we can keep the underground. I don't know. It's everything is in collectives. There are a few collectives, and I hope we can keep those sources and resources, because I think those are artists relying on artists and not other people too.
I could talk to you for hours. This is a really deep conversation. So I didn't even ask you my assignment. So I'm just going to ask you these questions, and I realized we have a lot to talk about. Yeah. Sorry.
I get in a lot of arguments with people over my opinions, and people think that I'm just opposed to change.
No, that's not what I hear. Here you are. You're making no. Oh, I don't hear that.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah. Here's for instance, the other thing is I think that a lot of people, everybody is doing something because they want something out of it. I do a lot of, at least my street art. A lot of people don't even know I do it.
Service, yeah.
It's like a service.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot of value in that it reminds us of how we're interconnected and the value, and that's this whole monetary business end of this and that. It's
well, I think it's kind of like this. You have two hot dog carts, and one guy, his father made the best hot dogs, and he has a family recipe, and he just loves this business. There's this pizza place in New York, and they gave free slices to kids who come in and do their homework. Awesome. It's a great business model. And then there's the other guy that's like, how many hot dogs can we sell? Mm-hmm. Blah, blah, blah. So it's not, you can abuse the system. It's that underlying motivation, and you can succeed. It's just,
in the end, there's longevity in being genuinely connected to what business you're putting out there and what you're, and sometimes it's the long road.
Yeah.
But that's okay.
Yeah.
I've fought for this place. It's strange to see, when people try and destroy one another when it's all for the good of stuff. And it's a shame.
What have you found satisfying about being an entrepreneur?
Simple one is I have 2 young sons, and I get to make my schedule. I don't have to, accommodate anybody else's schedule, and so I can still raise my kids and be there when they need me. I can go on school field trips in the middle of the afternoon or leave at 3 and pick them up, and that freedom is invaluable. That freedom to me. But as an entrepreneur, when I get notes from people that say, thank you, Leigh, what you're doing is such a great thing, and thank you for keeping it alive, and connecting with my tenants. I've had some tenants here for 10 years, and it's really neat. It's like we're a little family, and I really like that. But I don't know if it's just because I've done it for so long, but I'm pretty hyperactive, in always trying to start things, and so being an entrepreneur, it is nice. There's nothing wrong with pursuing something that's going to give you a return. I have found that Seattle does have a pretty supportive community of people that will back other people, and so putting your best foot forward and getting to know the right people, and following through on your word, and being really really tuned in and into your communication and is key, because otherwise you're just kind of a joke.
Yeah.
or you're just all talk.
So, in relationship to that, can you talk about some of the skills and competencies that you've used to overcome any of those challenges or just, to forge your business?
Yeah, well, I keep control of like my books. I do my own books. Learning how to do your own books is huge. QuickBooks. I stay on top of everything, every bill, every cent that comes in and out. I keep every receipt that I write, and get. And that's a big deal in business. Oh yeah, this is huge. Your city resources. I have used my city resources. They're there for a reason. There's the film and music office in Seattle that I've used to help navigate some permitting issues I had down here, and they were very much like, oh, whoa, we need to save you. This is very, very, very important to what we do. That's invaluable. I know that there's free lawyer clinics. Know the law and don't get hung up or rely on or think you can't talk to anybody because it's going to cost you $500. There's services out there, and I use them whenever I can. It takes a little bit of research. It's not a big deal. Maybe you have to show up at a weird time. Make it happen.
How did you learn to be this way? Were you always entrepreneurial when you were younger, or did you have models in your family?
My father ran his own insurance agency, and my mother is one of the most dedicated nurses I know. They were just, so I had really good role models as far as being very professional. And my father is he was Citizen of the Year in Renton last year, and he's the president of SHAG, and so he does a lot of extra community work, and he's a Rotarian, and I think that example of how to just, you put yourself out there, not for, like I said, it's so important to do things because it feels good, not because you're going to get something, or you get to feel good, or you are promoting the greater good of everything, not just yourself. Just promoting yourself it's
not sustainable.
It's not sustainable. No, and especially with the exposure, with social media and everything, the exposure, you're painting yourself that to a majority of people, I find that just self-promoting people all the time is just, I just tune them out. I feel like maybe what they're doing isn't speaking for itself. I think your work should speak for itself.